We are recording.
We are recording and we are speaking with our mouths. And hello to listeners. We do Infodump in the Russian accent today. Or
Mine
the
is just sort
European
of vaguely Slavic. It's hard
is like
to pinpoint
Eastern
where it
European.
comes. Yeah, sort of.
Hello, I
Soviet
am
bloc.
co-host of Infodump. I am Colin. I use they and he pronouns. I am joined by fabulous co-host.
Hello,
How long do we want to keep this going?
I don't know.
Jesus fuck.
Honestly, isn't that the question with every bit? How long are we going to keep this one up?
Yes, we could do the whole episode, but I think my brain might break.
Yeah. Hi, guys. I'm Hannah. My pronouns are they, them. Welcome to Infodump, the show where we tell you about stuff you didn't even know you want to know about TTRPGs.
There's so much stuff I didn't even know I wanted to know about Lorraine Williams and the Brothers Bloom and so many tidbits of history.
And the sock puppet TTRPG.
And the sock puppet TTRPG.
And the not Star Wars TTRPG.
And the not Star Wars.
But it feels a lot like Star Wars.
It's right. Well, but you know, at least the same general
vibe.
Thrust of rebellion against a fascist empire. Certainly no relevance to our current political climate in life.
Not at all.
Not around the world. Although I have to say I will confess, there is kind of big enough news that we want to talk about that I didn't really find a silly or great Kickstarter to talk about.
I completely
just
understand.
Felt like we got to talk about the giant two-headed Hydra elephant in the room walking
no
to
kidding.
another room.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, some stuff's been going on.
We
gotta talk about it.
We got to talk about it. But then we can rollies for horror stories. I did find it. One of those.
I would love that.
Okay.
So we're not so much going to roll for initiative this time. I think we're just kind of going to jump into the news. Is what it sounds like.
I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
take us into it.
I'd ask if you want good news or bad news first. But I'm not exactly sure if the bad news is good news or the good news is bad news.
Okay, well, tell me what you think is the good news first.
So the good news is, I think, again, good news could be bad news could be good news. So, astute listeners remember we were talking last time about Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford recently exited from WotC, some pretty senior veteran developers on the D&D side. They have joined Daggerheart imprint Darrington Press. Perkins in his role as creative director, Crawford as game director, which obviously parallels their previous positions at WotC, the creative director being the person who oversees story direction, the game director being the person who oversees the creation of the rules. That was reported by the LA Times and several other outlets. It seems like Crit Role CEO Travis Willingham approached Perkins and Crawford, who are longtime friends of the Critical Role team and the show. Perkins has appeared on the show. They learned, it sounded like Perkins was planning to retire. And that word had kind of circulated, and that Crawford's exit was planned kind of on the back of that, is that he knew Chris was leaving. He's like, well, if Chris is leaving, maybe it's time for me to seek different opportunities.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit. I think it makes a lot of sense. As we've talked about, they shepherded 2 full editions or a full edition and a half edition into completion at least, and have been there for donkey's years. Like,
no kidding. Yeah. They I think collectively they've been together at WotC for something like over 40 years cumulatively between the two of them. So it sounds like basically Critical Role, Travis said that they had heard that the two of them were planning an exit and just kind of like left the door open, like, hey, if you guys possibly want to work with us on our new TTRPG, you could do that. It does sound like that is exactly what they've done. A few different reactions from the community, obviously. Like, this definitely could make Daggerheart a real competitor to D&D. I think there'd been a lot of speculation that Daggerheart was just kind of like a D&D spinoff. And it sold out at launch. And the acquiry of Perkins and Crawford definitely seems to suggest that they are planning to go more the kind of the Pathfinder route and actually be another name in the game, another big brand in the room.
God, do I have another fucking system I have to learn?
Yeah, I mean, the press release from Darrington Press said that Crawford and Perkins would be focused on developing new game concepts, innovative mechanics, and future iterations, including upcoming expansions involving the entire slate of Darrington Press products. That would include Candela Obscura as well.
Yeah.
And it's also, I mean, it's been noted that WotC's lost a lot of veteran talent in the last 2 years.
I mean, this continues to be our top news going forward, is the ongoing erosion of the brain trust of decades of experience at Wizards with D&D specifically. Okay, quick side note, which maybe you know the answer to this as you've been doing some more of the research. Has WotC or Hasbro also been like hemorrhage? So I know Hasbro just announced like a 20% layoff or something. Have they also been hemorrhaging brain trust from like Magic the Gathering or some of their other like nerd game adjacent
properties?
Well,
there's a lot of overlap between departments, particularly between Magic and D&D.
That makes a lot of sense.
Which actually that very easily kind of segues us over to our bad news. Again, bad news, good news, good news, bad news.
Sure.
Jess Lanzillo actually announced that she quit in early June. And she actually had she led creative for Magic the Gathering before taking over as the VP of Dungeons and Dragons in February of last year. So very short tenure. She got 5e 2024 out the door and kind of oversaw Perkins and Crawford leaving, and now it seems like she is out as well. She announced herself on LinkedIn that she was leaving. Another fellow who has left, but in sort of a different fashion. Todd Kenrick has departed the D&D team. He was a senior content marketing strategist, a very visible member of the team. Appeared a lot in interviews and videos, announcing D&D products, talking about them, interviewing about them. And he announced on Twitter that he had been laid off. So not by his own choice. Yeah.
You know, so here's the thing I'm going to say. I do think that news was in the correct order, in the sense that I do think it is good news that Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford are not riding off alone into the sunset of the TTRPG wastelands, but joining. I feel like this is good news because I'm excited to see what they're going to do in what I would, without a ton of knowledge, what I would call a like less corporate and more creative environment. It's definitely more
indie. It's kind of inevitable that Darrington Press is much more indie. And I do think that speculation is correct, that this definitely does put a lot more weight and veteran talent on the staff of Darrington Press. I think concerns that I have seen people voice is one, that in integrating these two like really senior members of D&D development staff, you do run the risk of taking Darrington Press products like Daggerheart and Candela Obscura and making them more D&D like, just kind of inevitably. I think also there's some concern that Perkins and Crawford could push out Daggerheart's main designers, which at the moment are Spencer Stark, Rowan Hall, Matthew Mercer, Alex Teplitz, and Michael Underwood. And Spencer Stark and Rowan Hall, I think, also designed Candela Obscura. And so I think, especially like bringing them in, putting them in senior roles on the creative team, there's some concern about people who have already done a lot of work to make those games what they are. To that point, I think that is a legitimate concern and fear. I don't know any of these people personally well enough to know what like their attitude of coming in as senior creative team would be, something like that. I mean, the other I would kind of
flip on its head. And again, kind of, I feel like this is an opportunity and a good thing. And I would say if I'd been fucking working on D&D for 25, 30, combined 40 years with my creative partner, I would be like, can we please get the fuck away from this?
Yeah, can we go do something else, please?
And so, like, again, valid fear, but I would like to think in the optimistic version of like, no, they're going to be fucking sick of the stuff they've been doing and really want to do something different and or have seen the flaws in what they're doing for the last 20 years and want to do something different.
Yeah, there was a news story. No. I think you're completely right. I think definitely I can see where people are coming from, where it's like, this is what you've been making for the last forever. And it's very hard not to bring sensibilities from one project to the project you're working on. But I think that's a really solid point, is that D&D as a system is very calcified. If anything, the 2024 update really shows exactly how calcified it is and how much crazy, ridiculous nonsense is still in there, in part because we're all just so used to it being in there that the idea of removing it is unconscionable. And I would imagine if you are a creative force on that project, that could get really frustrating. I think Chris Perkins reportedly, like one of his big wins in D&D in 2024 was that they finally got to encode rules about doors into D&D, because he's like, one of the things that drives me the fucking craziest is when a group of people get up to a door and they're like, what do we do? I just open it. Just open it. So they just like, now he's literally gone on record where he's like, that was like one of my biggest pet peeves and we finally fixed it. And I can't imagine that being one of my pet peeves about the game, you know?
Yeah. Like asking people if you can counterspell a counterspell every other week for 15 years is like, that would get to me. But like,
yeah, it says a lot about like the minutia they're buried in, right? That like that was one of his big wins. He was like, we finally decided how doors work.
Yeah, well, and I think one of the other things, and so our delightful now friend of the show, Chris Hutton, founder and writer of TTRPG Insider, and likened the system of D&D in a way to like a video game that receives piecemeal patches over a decade, or even just like the 5th edition, right? And so for 11 years now, we've just been adding like tiny little pieces of code to try to fix a bug, and through the release of new source books. And we're really at this point where it might actually be better, because the code is so convoluted and buggy, to burn it all to the ground and restart from scratch.
Yeah.
But of course, we're not going to do that. However,
well, we can't, because then we wouldn't have the game, right?
However, nothing's really stopping them from doing that to Daggerheart if they need to. It's had one edition. Like the source code is so much fresher. If they if specifically that for a moment, and as far as I'm aware, like Candela Obscura has only had one, maybe two editions right now. Like they're way earlier in the patching stage or in the let's make a brand new game stage. And so hopefully they can look at the big picture.
TTRPGs have never been afraid to do that, right? Yeah. Like I think about what little I know about Vampire the Masquerade. They've never been afraid to be like, actually, all that other stuff we said was stupid. We're just getting rid of it and we're going to do a new thing. Yeah. It's I think that D&D is like kind of very hardened where it's at. I think that's a really good point. And I think it'll be really interesting to see how all of this change impacts future versions of the game. Also, big shout out to Chris. TTRPG Insider was where I learned of this news first, and where I got a lot of my information and did a lot of my digging. So big thanks to Chris Hutton. He's an incredible reporter, and
super nice. Check out the website and check out our interview, because we'll have Chris's take on all these things too. But and again, to kind of to the second point, I do think it is bad news of the continued erosion of the brain trust at WotC by choice and not by choice.
Yes.
Good Darrington Press, good news, good job scooping up some like really veteran talent, caveats aside.
Yeah.
And Wizards continuing to shoot themselves in the foot. Maybe that is good news ultimately.
Maybe they'll slowly learn a lesson at some point. The exit of Jess is definitely seemed to have come as a surprise. You know, they've lost a few big name people in the last few months, both from layoffs and by choice. It definitely seems like people who do have the space to move are moving on. You can see that in Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford, like big names in the space are like, okay, let's finish out the project that we're on, and then let's move to greener pastures. That does not suggest the best going on behind the scenes for sure. It seems like Jess really actually might have held out specifically to kind of send Chris and Jeremy on their way, and then been like, okay, I've now officially done all of the things that I was going to do.
All the things that I was hired or chosen by Wizards to do, as it may be.
No, for real. It's definitely it seems like it is a very rocky time over at Wizards right now. And it'll be very interesting to see how that evolves. EndWorld has reported that they are shopping around now for replacements for Chris and Jeremy. In general, the press releases have been very friendly. They've been very positive. Like Wizards did a joint announcement with Darrington Press that it's like, yep, Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford are now over at Darrington Press. We're really happy for them. We think this is going to be great for Daggerheart and for the rest of the imprint's games, and great for the gaming space in general, which is very polite.
I really wonder sometimes the cognitive dissonance that must go on, or like the hypocrisy for corporate and other spokespeople when you're like, I absolutely know my boss is fucking furious that our talent was poached, but I have to say and pretend everything is fine and we are buddies.
Yeah. Well, because so far, Darrington Press and Wizards have been pretty buddy-buddy, in part because of Critical Role's like a huge hand in popularizing D&D over the last 5-10 years. Critical Role has had a huge impact positively on Wizards' bottom line, noticeably. And it's very interesting to speculate on how long that relationship is going to last. Because now that they have Daggerheart out, and again, Daggerheart is doing very, very well, there's a lot of questions as to what the next season of Critical Role, what they're going to be playing. Are they going to be playing Dungeons & Dragons still? Are they going to be playing Daggerheart? Seems like kind of a waste if they don't play Daggerheart.
It does. At least for also, like short series as they've done.
But also, you know, like they would definitely really risk their positive relationship with WotC if they do that. I mean, so we'll see.
You know, from a fuck the corporation standpoint, I certainly hope their next season is Daggerheart and all of their own titles. I certainly hope so too. And I think the very existence of Daggerheart already kind of puts forward that they are going to sacrifice that relationship at some point. Well, and it's if I was Travis Willingham, which I am not, or any of the people in charge of this scheduling thing. Well, no. So like, you know, what I would argue is there is some inherent responsibility in using their platform, which to their credit, they generally do. They are generally pretty good about not being completely apolitical, not pretending to be completely apolitical. They're generally pretty good about, as much as the core crew is bunch of white people, they're pretty good about making sure that their cast rotates regularly. They feature voices from people of color and not continuing to just be like the white podcast. But in the same vein, I would argue as the biggest player in the actual play space, they have what I would call some responsibility to now they've saved D&D. They've gotten millions more people interested in D&D. Now get your millions of people interested in other games.
Yeah.
Whether or not they're your own, right? if I was one of the people who could make decisions for them, which I'm not, it'd be like, cool, here's what we're doing. We're not going to do 150 episodes of the same thing. We can have the main campaign going, but we want to break it up more frequently with like a 6-session kids on bikes. Let's show people the cool powers of like 80s kids. Let's do a 6-episode Daggerheart. Let's do Pathfinder. Let's do the Wild Sea. Let's do Rapscallion. Let's like do other genres and other games, at least for short chunks of time. Because I think part of my own barrier to wanting to play and try other games is not having seen how they work in action, you know, and being like, if I run this, if I try to play this, I'm going to fuck it up because I don't know what's going on.
Right. That's the actual play advertising model, right?
Yes.
Is that now you've seen it played, you could play it yourself. And I would put forward that I think it would be a huge waste if they didn't do Daggerheart next season.
Yes.
If that was not, because Critical Role
100%.
as an actual play podcast, that is their biggest advertising venue. That is their platform. That is the platform that's going to get out to the most people who are going to be the most invested in testing out this new system. And I think it would be kind of ludicrous if they didn't play Daggerheart. But if they're going to keep Dungeons and Dragons as the main staple of the show, I do agree that having like branching off into different systems as like kind of an integrated part of the story would be a very interesting and very like worthwhile expenditure of their time and effort, I think.
Yeah. I think so. Geez.
Yeah.
I wonder if we can keep a whole summer of talking about major departures from Wizards.
Oh my gosh, right? It's really crazy that it's been this many shows in a row that you and I have been able to talk about people leaving Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
That is insane to me. Like the amount of like exits that have taken place December 2023, October 2024, April this year, like that they're just like chunks and chunks and chunks of talent just like paring down. And it's a lot to watch.
It makes me concerned more than I am about kind of the corporatization of that culture and who they're going to hire to replace them. Like, you know, to grab our old tinfoil hat friend, like, is what's going to happen next a wave of hiring of like coders and programmers to fulfill Hasbro's AI-powered DM-less D&D fantasy wet dream that no one fucking wants?
Okay.
Is that what we're going to see?
I'm not going to put on my tinfoil hat. I'm going to put on my dunce cap, which is to say I didn't research this at all. This is just me speculating based on what I already know.
Yeah.
I would say what we are seeing right now from Hasbro is 2020 profits, COVID lockdown profits did not sustain forever. COVID lockdown profits were insane. They should have been enough to keep specifically Wizards in business for the next 100 years. But they're not going to, because the thing about getting and making that much money is that companies don't like save it. They just spend it immediately. And then
and they don't want to see a 1-year blip. They want to see, you've grown that much.
Right.
So
They want
sustain.
you to keep going. Everybody's locked inside and can't socialize in any other way than being online with their friends. And the best, most intellectually stimulating way to do that is to play TTRPGs. And D&D is the biggest name in the business. So, of course, a bunch of people are going to get into D&D at this time. They want to see that kind of money forever, which is never going to happen.
That's unrealistic. And I'm like, I don't think anyone there actually plays D&D.
No.
Except what's his name who said he wanted to play with AI.
Colin, first of all, they'd have to have friends, and we know they don't. So
that's fair.
They definitely don't play D&D. But
you could play with your corporate workplace associates, right?
They'd have to have more creativity inside of them than would exist in like a thimble. it's real. I think that's really what we're saying. It's like, this is 2020 Fallout. This is, we way overhired because we thought that like that the money was going to keep flowing this good for this long. And part of why we were allowed to think that is because we released Baldur's Gate 3, and that gave us such a bump that we were still measuring it by the time we got to the 2024 release. But it was never, the money was never going to keep flowing like that forever. They probably grossly overhired, which means that now they have to lay people off. And this kind of boom and bust cycle has really become kind of a staple of creative corporate industry. Of like, you load up when you're working on a project, at least in the US, right? This is not legal other places. But in the US, you load up on talent when you're starting to make a project. You keep them on for the rest of the project. And as soon as the project releases, you fire them all. And if that is what they were doing, that sure would make a lot of sense based on what we're seeing.
It sure would. Yeah. You know, again, I think part of the potential good news of Darrington Press gaining Perkins and Crawford is continuing to take bites out of Wizards' market share.
Yes, I agree.
Because they continue to not really show reasons why people should necessarily be loyal to them or their products.
Yeah, in many ways, they're showing exactly the opposite. So.
Yeah. Well, fuck, man. Yeah, someday we'll have news that is not about Wizards layoffs. Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to your mid-roll. It is I, your host, Colin, here to thank you once again for listening. It is so nice and so important, and it feels so good that you are here with us. And also to remind you that if you never want to hear me say that again, if you just are excited about the show, if you love what we're doing, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/therollreport, where also, for as little as a single $1 a month, you can submit questions for our interview guests. Only our friends and supporters on Patreon can submit questions, and only they will get to hear the answers. We've got some really incredible guests coming up as usual, and if you want to hear their answers to your questions, head on over to Patreon. Also, you can follow us on social media. We are at The Roll Report Cast on Instagram and TikTok, and now on Blue Sky. Ooh. Follow us there for announcements about upcoming guests once they have been booked, and then you will find out if you have interesting and amazing and unusual questions for all of them. But thank you so much for listening. That's really all. We are so grateful you're here with us and hope you are enjoying this episode. Back to the show.
I will say, as a brief aside, and perhaps lead to our next segment if we're ready to go there, I considered a horror story about adding a player to a table who claimed to have tons of experience and then had really bad main character energy and did not in fact know how to play at all. And it is revealed in the punchline that this person's experience is 8 months of watching Critical Role.
So good, dude.
I rejected it ultimately and found something that I think is more interesting that I'm more excited to talk about. But I was like, that there is this thing that I think we probably both have seen or heard and talked about of the Critical Role effect of people assuming that their table when they start playing will just magically be like that.
Yes. Yeah. I
don't have strong feelings about this, but like...
Well, the thing about actual play, I think, in general, is that it exposes people to different DM styles. The DM styles, of course, that are best for actual play have a strong narrative element, strong role-playing, usually a certain amount of theatricality and knowledge of one's audience. I think one of the reasons why I think Dimension 20 is even better than Critical Role is because Critical Role feels so much like a home game that just turned into a show, in part because a lot of the people in it are show people. Dimension 20 feels like a show that is put together for consumption by an audience.
It is genuinely a performance,
yes.
and they treat it as such.
I am definitely not one of those people who's like, oh, Dimension 20 is scripted. It's not. Like, you can tell that it's not. But
there is the intention and how they are approaching it. Yeah.
The structure of it, like they are clearly discussing ahead of time, like character arcs and intentions for characters, and like, you know, the basics of what they are intending to do. You know, Brennan is surprising them for sure, especially in combat, but he's not surprising them with what the story is about.
Yeah.
I actually think that Critical Role and by extension, the Adventure Zone are way better like representations of like what it's like to play Dungeons and Dragons with your friends, with one of those friends being somebody who wants to do everything and create a story. And also you guys are here. And I do think though, like everybody's DM style is different. And Matthew Mercer has a completely different DM style from Brennan, from Abria, from, you know, from Griffin McElroy. Like the McElroys all have different DM styles, right? Travis and Griffin and Justin they all DM differently. Clint DMs differently. And I actually think that I really enjoyed that part of the Adventure Zone, the way that they switch, they rotate, because I think it gives a much more realistic impression of like, people are not going to run this game the same. Basically, nobody's going to run this game the same way. The only reason it might seem like people run it similarly is because they're doing it for an audience, right?
Yeah. And I do think one of the things I appreciate about that is the also corresponding variance in quality, right? Not all DMs are created equal, not all players and their characters are created equal, and like some arcs just stick better than others. Yeah. You know? Honestly, first season of the Adventure Zone is one of the greatest actual plays I think I've ever heard. And then I have struggled to get into some of their other seasons, although I do love when the dad DMs the superheroes RPG. It was like, that was very funny.
I loved Amnesty. I'm a huge lover of Amnesty. I also really liked Graduation. I am a Travis McElroy defender until I die. I thought Graduation was very fun. But I do think it really
I would say
showcased.
None of it is bad. I don't want to say any of it is bad.
None of it's bad.
But both personal attachments to specific arcs and specific DMs, and they're just gonna be different, and every table is gonna be very different in its feeling. Different DMs and different stories are gonna speak to different players. That is just the case. And I honestly think the Adventure Zone is a great example of that. Yeah. 100%. If you don't know it, go listen. And See, we ended up promoting something. No, yeah. We can, we can always shout out our idols. If you haven't listened to the Adventure Zone Balance, you're missing out. Your life will be improved. That both of those things are very true. All right. Would you like to roll for initiative? Anyway, let's do it. I'm relying once again on a terrible electronic dice roller to see how it goes. 9. I got a 7. So you're going first, bud. Okay. I'm going first. Okay. So I have once again turned to r/DM Academy for a question that I thought would be interesting to try to find the solution to. And I believe there's probably an update to this. Okay. So the question is, did I write myself into a corner? How do I give my players a path forward? Which, as we all know, terrible question. I'm going to slightly paraphrase this, but it's mostly there. Okay. The party is in the wizard PC's hometown. The big bad knows where he lives and sent agents to capture him alive and investigate his late master's wizard tower months ago. The agent arrived a few weeks after the wizard's master faked his death, and the PC left to travel. To get closer to their target, 2 agents posed as followers of Kelemvor, claiming they would stop a recent undead plague. They convinced the town the undead's attacks were caused by corruption from the wizard's tower, and even went so far as sacrificing someone to, quote, protect the town. I appreciate how dark you're getting with this as immediately. The party eventually joined them to investigate the tower, where one agent was killed. The other is currently trapped, magically compelled by the Bard PC to run down a never-ending hallway. Horrifying.
Extremely funny. Extremely funny way to torment an evil NPC.
It just never ends. You just keep going this hallway. Fuck. Okay. Before being engaged, both agents had already reported back to their superior, a priestess who was actually orchestrating the undead attacks. So tonight, no matter what, the town faces another wave. The players might either fail to act and the town suffers, or they will take initiative and help civilians shelter in defensible buildings. They should be able to save the town this time, but then what? If the wizard is kidnapped, that opens a direct lead to track the priestess, and she'd stop attacking the town. Mission accomplished for now. But if they prevent the kidnapping, she has no reason to stop. Here's where I really messed up. The party doesn't even know she exists. They have no real lead. She's a hidden figure with no reason to expose herself. So, how can I give the party a real chance to move forward if they do defend the town successfully? And also the trapped agent of this BBEG could be a source of info, but if the players kill him or let him escape, that goes away. Okay, so to summarize this, right, the players do not know the actual big bad of this arc exists. Mm-hmm. They have one dead and one magically compelled agent of this big bad they could potentially interrogate. But I think the question is, like, how do we get the party linked to this person and make them know that she actually even exists?
So essentially what's happened here is this DM has created a conspiracy that is very secretive, right? And so there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that the players don't know about. Cool. They have not offered the players any inroads to figure that out.
Yeah.
And for me, I think this is actually a very common problem for DMs to run into, is that you have created some secret thing that's going on behind the scenes. And because you know everything about the world, it is very easy to keep it secret. It's let me say this. Very easy as a DM to just not tell your players information.
Yep.
Because you know it all. So you can just not tell them. You can just not give them hints about what's going on. You can just not plant clues. And to the opposite effect, if you do want your players to like kind of figure stuff out, you have to give them a lot of opportunities to do that.
Yeah.
Like you have to give them a lot of different doors into the mystery.
Wave a flag in every different possible color so someone will spot them.
There's anything to notice, you go, hey, isn't this weird? Look at this weird thing. Because half the time, and I mean more than half the time, 70% of the time, they're going to be like, weird guy holding a flag, don't know what that's about. And they're going to move on and not register it at all. I'm going to look at that
shop over there because it's a shopping expedition today.
They're not going to see it because they don't know any of the connective tissue, right?
Yeah.
They don't see the signs because to them, they're not signs. They're just weird things that are happening. So in order to build player intrigue and investment into a mystery, in order to help them figure it out so they can thwart your bad guy, you have to tell them what's going on. You have to give them opportunities to find out that, I don't even know from this story if it's clear to your players yet that these were agents who were double crossing them, who are in part responsible for the attacks. And it doesn't seem like they were necessarily the masterminds of that like they may have been working for something. I don't know if any of that is clear to your players.
I feel like there's a little context that is missing. There's this like one sentence they could expand of like, the party investigated the wizard PC's master's tower with these agents. One of them was killed, does not specify how, and the other is in this magically compelling run down the never-ending hallway. So my assumption from those two sentences is that somehow in investigating the tower, the party did figure out, okay, these are not followers of Kelemvor. These are actually agents of the person who's sending undead. Or they've noticed something, right?
Yes.
You don't kill someone and magically compel someone for no reason. Actually, that's not true. Many parties do that.
Yeah.
But
assuming your party are not evil.
Assuming your party are not like really fucking around to find out. Like it seems like they figured out something weird about these two agents who were left in the town. What they figured out, maybe nothing yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got to give them more information. Now, I do think you have a lot of opportunities to do that, right? They're in this wizard's tower. It could be that like maybe the wizard's master was looking into this. You have townsfolk that they're going to be interacting with.
Yeah.
Maybe the townsfolk are going to offer up the priestess.
Hey.
The priestess just lost her 2 lackeys. She's not going to show up and be like, hey, where are they?
Or at least like project an illusion of herself or speak through the undead minions, maybe something like that. Like, yeah.
You got to give them something.
Well, and as D&D, I think, is always a game where you can lean on the many tropes of fantasy and sci-fi and things. One of these henchmen is a fucking idiot who's going to talk to people and be like super proud about working for some evil, right? I just like we as a DM, I think not infrequently you have to lampshade so hard the piece of information, and you want to make sure there's 6 ways of the players getting it, right? In this case, it's like, okay, there's the idiot henchman in town that they might overhear if they're like walking around and they're in the right place, they roll a good enough perception check. There's, have one of the undead look like this person. Make sure that the agent does not in fact escape, let them interrogate him and have him be scared and spill all his secrets. Like there are 6 on-ramps at least in any situation to get your party to the information that you want them to have.
You have to give them a lot of opportunities to get it.
Yeah.
And I think also this can become a problem. Like if it's partially because you're not giving them enough information, this can become a problem of like, you have constructed the perfect crime because this is not a real world that people can investigate. Like, this is not a real space where people can learn anything that you don't tell them. So,
and like, unless you're the kind of DM that enjoys the looks of frustration on your player's face when they can't figure out why the fuck they're in this town and what's going on. And if you are that kind of DM, I have further questions.
Right. The idea that, like, this priestess doesn't have any reason to give her a reason. Give her a reason to shut up then. Like, give her a reason.
I mean, turn it, you know what? Here's the evil version that I'm just thinking of right now. She's pissed off. She shows up and wipes out the town. The party should fail to protect the town and get clobbered by undead. And just get like beaten to a pulp and left unconscious. And when they wake up, they have seen your big bad now. They have seen her destroy this town that was sheltering them. And they wake up in a pile of rubble and corpses. But now they know who is responsible. And they have a, depending on how they play their characters, they have a reason for vengeance and finding this person.
Yeah, you could do a big show of force. But I actually would caution this DM against like hard line, like this is what has to happen for the story to move forward in that respect, because of something else that they mentioned in this post, which I would caution almost all DMs against, which is, well, I really wanted to kidnap the wizard and have that be their way in. And I'm like, your idea was to imprison a player character against the wishes of that player character and all the other player characters. That usually doesn't go very well, especially if it's the only way to initiate another part of the plot.
Totally. I agree. Once again, I feel like there's context in these follow-up questions I want to ask this DM of like, okay, the wizard kidnapping is a plot point you want. Did you talk to your player about that? Does your player want that? Is your player trying to not be a wizard for a little while?
Yeah.
Because all the answer to all these questions might be yes. And then I'm like, fucking go for it. But then, I don't know. You and I have talked about like how I think it is important for DMs when you want to do something for narrative purposes to say, hey, before the session, players, this is going to happen. I want you to know unless you do something like really extraordinary, you're not going to prevent the wizard from being kidnapped. Wizard and I have talked about it. Wizard wants to shuffle the off screen for a little bit and bring someone else on. Like, this is what's happening. Oh, Cat is being very cute and distracting. Yes. Oh, and has hairball. Okay. Oh, poor little mite. Okay.
He's usually fine. It's just not a fun sound to hear. I wouldn't just,
you know,
the audio of Gatsby trying to hack up a hairball is just not, I think, what the audio experience that I think most people are trying to have.
Yeah. Anyway, but like we say often, if you communicate with your players, if they are in fact prepared for this eventuality, I think that's fine. But as you say, if just DM is going, I want to kidnap this fucking wizard and not talking to anyone, and it would just happen without consent from your players, like, I'm going to say that's bad DMing.
I agree. I am a player who pretty infamously in certain campaigns has been like, I want to be Princess Peached. I want to be grabbed by the bad guy. I want him to carry me off into the night. I think there is a time and place for that. I think that can be very fun. I did have to talk to, because what happened is a few bad guys tried to kidnap me. And the party was always like, no. And I was like, hey, guys.
It's okay.
Hey,
really,
guys, it's okay.
Fine.
I want it to happen, actually. I think it'd be funny. I think we should do that. So I think it does have to be a conversation, from DM to players. And I think in general, that might be helpful here. I think it might be good to sit your players down and be like, hey, why don't you tell me what you feel like you know about this situation? And I can help you clarify some things. Just in case you have been giving them information and they just haven't put it together, or maybe you put some stuff out in front of them, they didn't really notice it. If it does sound, though, like you're stumped, but your players haven't figured that out yet. So you have some time. Good job.
Yeah.
You have some time.
Yeah.
I would basically just start putting big old neon signs pointing to the villain, saying, "This is the villain. Hey, that's the villain.
Yeah.
That's who did it. That one over there."
Sometimes this is what you got to do. This is absolutely what you got to do.
Yeah.
I will say, as I've been looking down, this is pretty much the advice that Reddit has decided. Some people had some very specific, you could do this, and then this, and then this. But a lot of it is lampshade this fucking thing. You have valid concerns, but you gotta do the thing.
Yeah. As long as your players haven't figured it out, then it's what you intended the entire time.
One of the things that I'm gonna note as a little update from the original post is that the agents have a sending stone. So if they search the bodies, they'll find a sending stone. They might not know who it's connected to and whatnot. But
yeah.
But
if they have one and that's going to be your in, you just give it to them. You just give it to them.
I want to read this one. I think this is the most recent comment, which does say, "I'm going to be candid here out of love. Please don't read this as snark. Rule number 1, never, ever," in bold, "never, ever prep solutions. D&D is a game, not an interactive story. Coming up with creative solutions is the player's job, not yours. You are not an author. You're a game master. Your job is simply to write spanners with which to throw into the works and watch your players creatively pull them out."
Yes.
I don't know that I fully agree with that.
I have heard that advice
But
before.
I do think it's an interesting point to make in this context, that you're not the problem. Your players are the problem, or the players must solve the problem. I think if you're the DM that enjoys your players feeling frustrated, sure. But you and I think, have always emphasized how collaborative this has to be.
Yes. I think that this advice comes from a good space. I think the idea that you should put your players in situations, not in scripted scenes, is good advice. I think for me, The goal is to give my players problems and solutions, like problems and situations that I can give them ideas on how to solve.
Yeah.
I can tell them what probably the end goal is that they're working towards.
Yeah.
I want them to tell me how they get there.
Yeah.
I find that it, more so than this advice, gives me, like, I know where we're going.
Yeah.
You tell me how we're getting there.
Yes.
That is the interactive part of the game, right?
Yeah.
I think sometimes when following this advice, people can end up in this situation where they're like, oh, I just let them fuck around with the puzzle until they give me an interesting answer, and then I say that's the solution. That's not a very fair way to initiate play, I don't think.
Well, and I do think there's an expectation as a player that your DM does in fact know what's going on.
Yes.
They do have notes behind the screen on how that puzzle works.
Well,
and how
especially when we're talking about
it.
Something like linear, like a puzzle, where there's like an input and an output. I don't
want to know that you had no fucking idea what was going on, and then we just found something that you wanted to latch onto.
Because that says you just made me a frustration machine to run around in until you thought I did something funny enough that you were like, all right, I let you out of the frustration machine.
I mean, I get enough of that from the world. I don't need my RPGs to also make me frustrated.
Yeah.
You know? Anyway, yeah. This is the thing. I was like, I think this is going to bring us some interesting both solutions to this person's problem and more generally,
I think so too.
Keep reinforcing that you must, as a DM, you must talk to your players.
You must talk to your players. I think that's probably a good way to segue into mine, where we're going to stop talking about like meta story mechanics, and we're going to start talking about the other thing that this game entails, which is like interpersonal relationships.
Yeah.
This is from RPG Horror Stories. How do I politely remove a nice but annoying player from our online game?
Oh, the worst. Okay. What do we got?
Our
what are we
group
dealing with?
Has been playing online for about 4 months. They are a good group, and I think it's going well. We haven't missed a single session yet, and most of the players are constantly coming to me asking for extra lore or chatting about character arcs, etc. The problem is the bard. He still doesn't have a properly completed character sheet. His backstory is barely a page and somehow misses out any named details when everyone else gave me sectioned and well-organized multi-page character docs. He has missed about a third of the sessions when no one else has missed a single one. He takes days to respond on Discord to group messages, if at all. I have offered to help with his sheet at least twice, and I have chased him for backstory details for months. No response. Last session, he was clearly feeling left out because I let the fighter bring their mercenary company, the druid of Fae Spirit from their grove, and the rogues gang helped smuggle the party into the city. But we have been talking about these details for weeks, and each player told me ahead of session what they were planning. Because he has missed so many sessions, he feels left out of planning and often doesn't understand exactly what is going on. He asked if his noble family, which I have zero details about, could live in this city and help somehow. I just responded, no, I am not going to improv an entire noble house mid-session, and moved on. I feel at this point it is frustrating for both of us, and I don't have the energy to handhold a player like this. He is a nice guy, and I don't want to just kick him out unceremoniously, but how do I politely explain that this just isn't working? And honestly, I think it would be better if he just leaves.
I mean, I think you have Jesus. I'm sorry.
Boy.
Like, frustrating because, you know, it's easy to feel morally righteous and kick out an asshole. Like, you have a shitty, racist, stereotypical character, and fuck you, you're not meshing with the group, leave.
Right.
There's even a small satisfaction of removing a problem from your game. This is someone who seems well-intentioned, but just not willing to put in any amount of effort, or maybe there is stuff going on in their life that's preventing them from attending these sessions.
Could be busy, could not really understand the amount of work that this game takes.
Yeah.
Could like be like fully invested from like a personal standpoint, but like just doesn't have the creative energy to do this.
I mean, and you know, again, kind of as we were saying, there's lots of different DM styles. I played for people that don't want a backstory.
Yeah.
Or that don't care. It's not important to the thing. And so I've not really made one. I've figured out who the character is as we play the game. And so this particular DM style of wanting a page plus backstory with NPCs and things may not be for this player. So, okay, so actual advice, DM, talk to your player. Have a real-time conversation, because having it over text, again, there is so much room for everyone to get heated and read something into what you have written that is not there. But have a conversation, and maybe start with the compassionate, look, maybe there's a lot of stuff going on in your life, but you've missed a lot of sessions, and this is why you are feeling so left out. This is not me or the other players. This is a direct result of your life and your schedule and whatever is going on that's preventing you from missing our games. And if it were me, I would want to start there and find out if this player is willing for, maybe one more month trial period to be like, if you get me your backstory written by next session, if you are here every session for the next month, great, let's make it work. And if you don't want to do that, if you don't feel like you can do that, I'm going to ask you to leave the table because of these problems that we are both experiencing and both being frustrated by. But it's a sticky situation. Like I also, it said it was an online group. Are they all friends in real life?
It sounds like
that
an online
makes
group.
It's
not necessarily clear if they're all friends in real life.
Well, this DM has so much of my sympathy for trying to deal with a really sticky and annoying problem. And if this person is your friend, that makes it harder, although hopefully then you do know if there's something going on in their life that's preventing this,
Yeah, this is a player that definitely either doesn't understand or isn't capable at this time, for any myriad of reasons, of meeting the expectations of this particular group. Your expectations for your group are that they have backstories, that they have fully completed character sheets, that they are talking to you very actively and candidly about their experience of the game, that they are allowing you to support them in whatever ways they might need, and that they are showing up for every single session. And this person is not doing any of that. If that's because...
The fully completed character sheet really gives me some pause.
That's crazy. Like, it sounds like you guys have been playing for several sessions. I do not even understand how you're doing that without a fully completed character sheet, particularly for a spellcaster. But that says to me, either those expectations were not necessarily clearly communicated, but were implied. And you might want to clearly communicate them. And also, what we are definitely seeing is that this is not a great table fit. This is not a great table fit. What he proposed there of like, hey, maybe my family could live here, that was actually, I think, a pretty good proposal for improv, but it was completely within your right as a DM to say, no, I'm not building that right now.
Or certainly not mid-session.
Certainly not mid-session.
I think that's a valid request, maybe at the end of the session, to be like, hey, I know I haven't really finished up my backstory. Maybe my noble family background can play here.
Right.
But you don't get to do that in the middle of the session.
At least if you haven't established that that's what you're going to do.
Totally.
That this is the kind of DM that you have. I have a campaign where I do actively build stuff at the table with my players. Yeah. It's something that I've taken from more rules-light TTRPGs. It's a process that I really enjoy. But part of why I'm able to do that is because I have a lot of dialogue with those players beforehand about who their character is and what their backstories are and like what their surrounding NPCs are like, so that we can on the fly be like, hey, what do you think about like, what was your relationship with this person? And what if they were here? And like, what kind of, how long has it been since you saw them? And like, what are they doing? And like, I probably could do that with a player I was really engaged with, where I knew a lot about their character and their backstory. I'm completely with this DM. I could not do it blind.
It would certainly not be good. I mean, as an actor and improviser, I'm like, I could take that as a challenge and probably take it and run with it if I just get a quick name generator up on my screen and like find who the fuck they are. But again, context and communication are so important for this. Like, your ability to do that with your players relies on them already having done that background legwork. Right. So you know where you can pull these things from.
Right. Because I don't even know, like, your family, the connected NPCs to you are people that you know. And they're people with specific personalities that have impacted you in specific ways. They have jobs and goals and things that have
I
impacted
can make some
you.
fucking assumptions about that, but you, the player, should have given me information and might have strong feelings about it. If I suddenly start doing like, you have asked me to improvise a thing. Okay, your dad is a big blustery Midwestern dad. Oh, son, you're back from adventuring. It's so good to see you. And player goes like, no, that's not right. My dad like hates me and hates that I was adventuring. And you're like, well, you didn't fucking tell me that. And now we both look like assholes.
Yeah, exactly. I completely support this DM's right to be like, no, I'm not doing this. Especially because they had nothing to build on, right?
Yeah. And I think, again, to their question, how do I remove this person? As always, you communicate, you have an actual conversation with this person, and you use your I statements and lay the thing out as kindly and compassionately as you can. And you know, I don't always love ultimatums, but maybe in this case it's appropriate. Like, I want you to either fully engage with the game in my world, or I would like you to leave the table. That might be kind of how it ultimately ends up.
It kind of depends on your vibe with this person.
Yeah.
What I would say is my way into this conversation is compassion first, curiosity second, and then statement of boundary. So you can start with, hey, I notice it seems like you've been feeling really left out in a lot of the sessions recently.
I also notice you haven't been at a lot of the sessions.
I also notice you haven't been there. Why is that? Are you having trouble like making the sessions? Is it not a good time for you? I also noticed that you haven't filled out your character sheet or like completed your backstory, and that it often takes you a very long time to communicate with us. Why is that? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then once you have the answer to those questions, you can state your boundary, which is, I really need players to be here every single session, with very rare exception. I need them to have fully completed character sheets and a slightly more detailed backstory so that I can build on it. If that's not something that you're able to do, I think we need to part ways, at least for now.
I'm still having a hard time getting over that they haven't finished the character sheet. I accept maybe they're new, maybe they're having a hard time, whatever it is. But it also said I think they've refused help, or they have not responded to offers for help with that specific thing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So
that again says to me, this is somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience with the game and doesn't understand how important these things are. That's expectations. You got to communicate what expectations are, especially if you have like brand new players who don't really understand what they're getting into. But I agree. Like you've got to find time to talk to this person one-on-one and be like, hey, what's going on with you?
I feel like we're going to need a running tally of how many times the best solution and advice is communication.
I'm telling you, man.
And then just like a really nice supercut of every time we're going, DMs, talk to your players, players, talk to your DMs. And we'll just see like us in like 9 million different outfits at different times doing that. You know, I think this speaks to a larger problem of like, good communication skills are not taught. And so the likelihood that people acquire them in their lives is much more of a crapshoot than it should be.
Yeah.
You know, my most recurring daydream is that public schooling and all schooling teaches children critical thinking, communication skills, and empathy.
Oh, wouldn't that
Who
make
needs
for a
to know
world of
when the
better
War of
adults?
1812 started? Which
well, hold on.
Is in the title.
Okay, but to be clear, you need information and context in the culture.
You need
in which
information
you
and context as well.
I feel like we were just talking to a mutual friend of ours who was like I casually mentioned phonics education, and she's like, what does phonics teach you? And I'm like, how to decode words. It teaches you how to read. If you don't know phonics and you don't have good phonemic awareness, you will never learn how to read. Just to be clear, I'm a teacher. Please don't. Hey, let's be clear. Science says phonics works. I don't want to talk about that.
I mean, well, in this specific case, I will say that I fucking hated phonics. I believe you and I have had this conversation that I learned to read by, I would refuse to sound words out. I would demand that my parents or whoever I was reading with just tell me what the word was. And then I knew what the word was and I would never spell it wrong. But that's me. And phonics, I do believe, has been proven to work on like many, 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 many people.
You,
and
my
like
friend,
most people.
You, my friend, are an outlier.
I'm weird.
And should not have been counted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true. Very
I
true.
think that like when we're in situations like this where we're advising people, it's like you got to have these conversations. I think a lot of what it boils down to is like people don't know what to say or how to initiate that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think what it boils down to is like if you are willing to be compassionate to somebody who's being annoying, you're probably going to get a lot further than if you're not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
Well, talk to your players' DMs,
and also be willing to experience
and
discomfort to get what you want.
Sit in discomfort with each other if you have to, but you'll go a lot further with compassion.
Because it might be that you have to sit this person down and be like, hey, I just don't think it's working out, and that sucks, and I don't want you to feel like you're a bad person and that's why it's not working, but I just don't think I don't think this is fun for you, and I know it's not fun for me. And so with that in mind, here's how we're going to move forward. That's a hard conversation to have.
Hey, sometimes hard conversations are the ones most worth having.
For sure.
It sucks and we won't try to put them off, but sometimes they're the ones we need to have.
Sometimes you gotta.
Well,
oh my gosh.
On that note, I think we have provided some good advice.
I think so too.
We'll see what Reddit says to these things. And yeah, someday we'll stop talking about Wizards of the Coast layoffs. It'll happen. Maybe next episode.
Someday, huh? Someday.
Hannah, where can people find you on the internet for more sparkling, scintillating pearls of wisdom? Oh, I can't tell if I might have lost Hannah.
Hold on.
With a very good expression on her face,
you better
though.
cut this out because
but I'm going to wait for a minute, and I'll keep talking into the ether about the things in places where you can find me. You can't necessarily find me. There we go.
I'm back. I'm so sorry. My internet went out for just a second.
It did. Hannah, where can people find you on the internet for pearls of wisdom?
Well, people can find me on the internet at Booger Queen Draws. I am at Booger Queen Draws, literally everywhere, Tumblr, TikTok, not Blue Sky yet, but Red Note, YouTube. I draw things. I make content about D&D and Baldur's Gate and all kinds of other things. Yeah. I love to do it.
And you can follow the show at the Roll Report Cast on many social media platforms, which Hannah maintains, and I occasionally drift through and sometimes leave a pithy comment when people are asking us about Orientalism and representation of monks in D&D.
I love that. Yeah,
as it might be.
I think. I was experiencing something as I was going through our social media channels the other day where like every once in a while I appear on our social media channels because now I've been on the show a few times. And it's amazing to me how many times I will see a comment in the comment section of videos that I'm in where somebody's arguing with my point. And I'm like, oh man, I wish I'd addressed that. And then like 30 seconds later, I address it. And I'm like, oh, I see. They didn't watch the whole video. I get it.
They didn't watch the whole video.
They started typing before they watched the rest of the video.
It's really interesting that we can in fact see that most of y'all who will hopefully be listening to this watch 9 seconds approximately on average, and then decide that you're done.
I think the people who listen to Infodump are erudite elites, actually, and are the kind of people who watch the entire video before they start typing a comment.
The creme de la creme of RPG content consumers. Well, thank you for consuming our content, and watch the videos till the end if you haven't.
Thank you for listening to this podcast to the end. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening. We definitely appreciate it. If you want to show your love, you can give us a 5-star rating or review on your podcast platform of choice. You can write reviews on Apple Podcasts. They really help new people find the show. Or you could go to patreon.com/The Roll Report, where for as little as $1 a month, you could, buy us a coffee and make sure that we are well caffeinated when we start talking about the next wave of layoffs hitting the industry.
I love to be caffeinated.
I occasionally do, sometimes. Thank you for listening, and Hannah, you are always delightful.
You're always
I'm so glad
delightful.
We're doing this.
Thank you
almost
so much.
Like
Thank you so
shows
much.
made by people that like each other are like cool or something.
They're nice and fun.
Weird,
and
they are.
I just love getting to tell people about things and stuff. I know so much about things and stuff, Colin.
It's true. Well, and now we're able to disseminate this knowledge even better. Until the next knowledge dissemination, keep on rolling, friends. We'll see you next time.
See you later.